So the animal rhythm patterns are basically commonly occurring rhythms, and we want students to learn to recognize them as a whole unit instead of reading and counting each rhythm like note by note. So it's a similar idea to what we just talked about, reading the melodic contour. One example of an animal rhythm is Zachariah zebra. So that's 4 eighth notes and 2 quarter notes. And we want students to see that rhythm and understand it as a whole, how to execute it and just to recognize it as that.
You're listening to The Topcast, the original podcast for growth-minded instrumental music and voice teachers since 2015, with your host, Tim Topham. Our mission at Top Music is to empower instrumental music and voice teachers to find and nurture their innate creativity so that they can teach lessons that are innovative, integrated, and inspiring, and that will have a positive, lifelong impact on their students. Join us each week as we interview teachers and creators from around the world and unpack fun and exciting ideas to maximize your teaching and studio business success. G'day teachers, it's Tim here. Welcome back to the Topcast. Today, we are kicking off the final theme of 2025. It's December, and the theme here on Top Music, the podcasts, the blog, the magazine, is all about technique. Now, teaching technique can be a really challenging subject to discuss because many of us teach it in quite different ways, and no one way is the right way. And many of us are actually quite protective about our approach, and being told there might be another way or even a better way can feel a little bit of an affront to our skills as a teacher. Now, personally, I've always been really open to learning about technique because there are just so many ways you can go about it. And I hope that all of you listening today can similarly keep an open mind to see how others teach and what you might be able to learn from them and what you might be able to incorporate into your own approach. Today, we're kicking off the new theme talking about teaching beginner piano technique. And this is almost a revisit to an episode we aired in December 2016. Can you believe that? 9 years ago, when my guest today was last on the show. Now, at the end of the episode, I'm also going to talk about some advanced technique solutions that we have for you as well. So stay tuned for that if that's more of the area that you do your teaching in. And don't forget, this episode has a lot of technique demonstrations at the piano. So if you're a Top Music Pro member, jump into the library and you can watch today's episode. My guest today, Katherine Fisher, serves on the piano faculty of the Ohio University School of Music in Athens, where she teaches applied piano and piano pedagogy. She also coordinates the group piano program and mentors graduate teaching assistants. Katherine is internationally recognized in the field of piano pedagogy as the creator of the innovative piano method, Piano Safari. Along with co-author Julie Nerhag, she has published well over 100 books and pedagogical materials. The Piano Safari method and its supplemental teaching material is distributed throughout the world and is used by thousands of piano teachers and students. Well, welcome back to the Topcast, Katie. So great to see you again.
You too, Tim. Thank you so much for having me.
So I really wanted to do a bit of a check-in because you were last on the show in episode 71 and we're now up to 431. So this was way back in December 2016, almost 9 years ago. I can't quite believe it. And I think this was, I first met you guys, I think it was probably 2013, maybe MTNA. I think that was about when you guys started launching.
Yeah, exactly. I think 2013 was actually the very year that we formed the business. So that sounds like the right time, but it is hard to believe that it's been 9 years since 2016. So.
At least we're still looking fabulous.
That's right.
Now you have, and look, over that time, you've really made a name for yourself and cemented Piano Safari's place in piano teachers' libraries. So huge congratulations to you both.
Oh, thank you, Tim.
What do you think has given staying power to Piano Safaris? Because there are a lot of teachers out there creating methods and using their own approaches and trying to get things out into the world. You guys have had great success. What do you think? What would you give that credit to, do you think?
That's such an interesting question. It was good to consider. I think it's because when Julie and I went to design Piano Safari back when we were students at the University of Oklahoma, we spent a good amount of time researching the best pedagogical practices from the past. And then what we wanted to do was take those pedagogical practices that we believed in and liked to use, and we wanted to merge them together in a new way that they hadn't been merged before. So I think that Piano Safari has staying power because It uses these proven and sound pedagogical practices, but then it also incorporates creativity. And we try to use themes that really capture the imagination of beginning pianists. Yeah, I feel like that's one of the things that's given it success. And also just that we were willing to think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? You were so open at those first presentations that you gave, and you were at multiple conferences. I'm sure you did many more workshops than I even knew about, but you were always so approachable, so open, just saying, look, this is the research we've done. This is what we've created. Come and try it out. How much fun is this? And I think that really captured a lot of teachers as well. For those teachers listening, I'm sure few will have never heard of you, but there may be some. So can you tell people what you believe makes Piano Safari different to, say, Alfred's or Bastion or Piano Adventures?
Sure. Yeah, I think the thing that really sets Piano Safari apart as unique from other methods is that we blend an intervallic reading approach with rote pieces. So that combination of reading and rote is really what would set Piano Safari apart from more traditional methods.
Yeah, and it has that kind of flexibility as well of taking that creative approach, I think, which is, oftentimes I think with other method books, you're very kind of regimented and feel like you're on this train track in only one direction and you can't really deviate. Whereas you have always, in your writings and presentations, always suggested, how can we kind of explore this and get deeper, have more fun with it? And I think that's so important. And I think one of the big differences that I've always loved is this connection between Piano Safari, the name of it, and animal rhythms. Can you explain what the animal techniques are like in Piano Safari and why they're so unique?
Sure. Yeah. So the animal techniques that we use are in Piano Safari Friends, which is our method for preschoolers, and also in Piano Safari Level 1. And those are based on my co-author, Julie Haig's dissertation research. So to quickly summarize that, she traveled around the United States back when she was doing her dissertation and interviewed teachers that were kind of leading teachers of pre-college students that were very advanced in their playing. And she wanted to see what these teachers did with these students to get them playing at such a high level at such a young age. So as part of her interviews, it was really interesting because she found out that actually many commonalities existed between the teachers, even though they came from different technical schools of thought. So we used that research in Piano Safari to form our animal techniques.
And can you give us a demo of one of those?
Yeah, sure. So I am here at my piano. If I turn on my original sound, maybe you can actually hear me. Let's see here. You can see me. So we have the lion paw, dropping with arm weight, and that's connected to a lion's roar and just that imagery of a heavy lion paw to, again, capture the imagination of the student. So they're not just being told to drop with arm weight, they're thinking that they're lions. It's much more fun. So we have several other techniques, obviously. One is to work on non-legato articulation. So that's tall giraffe. And that wrist rolls like the tall neck of the giraffe. So that's just to give you a taste. I mean, there are 7 of them in level 1. I don't know how in depth you want me to go on technique today. I feel like it's such a fun topic. I can talk too long about it. So
this month is all about technique, so we might jump into that a little bit more later. But I guess given that model that you've created is about using rote and improv and creativity and intervallic reading, and the fact that it was all deeply based in research. But I think the most clever thing you've done is integrate all of these into this structured, scaffolded approach. So whereas other teachers may have sort of drawn elements of maybe thrown some rote in because they realised that was a good thing to do to their regular method or whatever it is, you've sort of created this all-in-one approach. And I wonder, did teachers need a lot of convincing to understand this approach, do you feel?
I do think there's a learning curve for teachers, especially if they spent years teaching a more traditional method. Because if you're just, let's say you're walking around a conference and you pick up Piano Safari and flip through it, well, the first thing that jumps out is that the pieces look like they're different levels. And of course, that's because some are taught by reading intervallically, some are taught by rote, away from notation. So the book does look different when you're flipping through it. I feel like it's very approachable, though, once you understand the approach and the philosophy. There's a lot of freedom within it. And we get a lot of comments that teachers have so much fun with it and that they feel like it's really invigorated their teaching and their students' learning. So although it may be slightly different, I hope that everyone's willing to kind of jump in and explore it a little bit.
I also like that you have these pieces, rote pieces in there that are actually great recital pieces, or can be. So a student who's a very new beginner can actually play something on a stage or at a recital that actually sounds really quite good with either their teacher playing a duet or a backing track or something. And I think that was actually missing in a lot of other methods where you're for weeks and weeks and weeks playing very basic music, which you wouldn't really, as a child, want to sort of get up on stage and demonstrate because it's so simple. But you had these really fun ones, and I'm thinking I Love Coffee is obviously an obvious one at the start. Is that a big fan favorite?
Oh, yeah. I Love Coffee, Hungry Herbie Hippo. Those are kind of the melodies that kids play over and over until their parents are, I'm sure the parents are happy they're practicing, but maybe they're ready for them to move on to a new piece.
Absolutely. So let's zoom out for a second. What do you feel has changed more generally in piano pedagogy since we last spoke, sort of 9 or 10 years ago?
I think it is related to what we're talking about now, definitely the acceptance and understanding of what is meant by rote teaching. Because when Julie and I first released Piano Safari, which is nearly like 15 years ago now, that idea seemed foreign to most teachers, and it had to be explained and often defended.
Yes. I remember Paula Dreyer was creating her music too at the same time and trying to help teachers understand rote teaching.
Right. Yeah. So I think that idea now seems well known and accepted. And it seems like we have this new terminology of understanding what we mean by rote teaching and how it should be used. So to me, that's one of the things that's changed the most in piano pedagogy, probably since we last spoke. Yeah.
And do you think teachers have embraced more creativity, outside the box teaching, more flexibility and things like that?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think so. I feel like there's been such a rise of other resources that really are working on improvisation and composition and just how to bring those things into lessons.
And what's changed in Piano Safari? Because I know there's a hell of a lot more books out there now than when you started.
There have been so many books added since 2016. So in 2021, we did add Piano Safari Friends, and that's the preschool method for students who begin between ages 4 and 6. So if you have a child that age, you should start in Piano Safari Friends. And then if they're older, 6 or 7, they can start directly in level 1. We also added an older student series, and we say that's roughly for students ages 12 and up, and it's intended for adults also. We have 3 levels of that. We have the Advancing Pianist series, and that's for students who have finished level 3, either of our core method or the older student series, for them to continue working on their technique and their sight reading. And we have so many wonderful supplemental composers, like Chi Tan, Juan Cabeza, Amy Glennon, and others too that are contributing to the Piano Safari catalog. And these are all amazing composers and amazing people, and I just feel very privileged to work with them.
Is that what diversions are? I saw those on your websites.
Yes, those diversions are by Juan Cabeza. He's from Spain.
Hey, yes, he's created music for us as well. A huge fan favorite of our members.
Yes, we met Juan, I think, back around the time we had our podcast with you. It's been almost 10 years ago now. He was using Piano Safari, and we started corresponding with him. And he said it's what inspired him to start writing really pattern-based pieces like he has in diversions and piano trips also.
And do teachers use Piano Safari in group settings?
Yes, definitely. It really adapts quite well to groups. I teach Piano Safari Friends in groups at the university. And we have created lots of supplemental, like little cards and things that go with the books to help introduce rote pieces specifically away from the piano. before you bring students to the keyboard. And so that's very helpful, obviously, for group settings.
And do you have backing tracks?
We have accompaniment tracks for our core method. So that's Piano Safari Friends and level 1 and 2 of both older student and our core series. We also have some backing tracks for our Christmas books.
Rightio, yeah. Because obviously that's a huge benefit for students in helping them, encourage them to practice on their own because they've got something more to play along with. Obviously, it's great for ear and ensemble playing. And I think it's just a fun way to keep that sort of playing alive, and fun for teachers too. And I think some of it's available on SuperScore, is that right? Which is an app that teachers can use to play along with backing tracks, is that right?
Yes, SuperScore is such a wonderful resource. It's for Apple products, so you can use it on iPad. But it is very flexible. It has the backing tracks, but you can mute certain parts. So you could practice your left hand with the right hand sound on, or you could, turn the teacher's part off or on. I mean, there's just so many different flexible uses for practice. So we do have our core method on SuperScore.
So given our focus this month is all about technique, I'd like to dive into some of the technique and reading approaches and ask a few questions around that. Firstly, what makes starting with intervals and contours rather than note names such an effective way to help students become better readers?
Yes, I think to answer this question, it's really helpful to think about advanced readers, because musicians who read effortlessly and quickly, I think, see patterns and shapes, such as scales, chord inversions, arpeggios, repeating patterns, motives. And what they're not doing is reading note by note, thinking about the letter names, right? Then if we transfer that idea to teaching a beginning student to read, we need to train them to see those same types of patterns. And that's why we chose an intervallic reading approach. And that simply means a student identifies how two notes relate to each other by seconds or thirds. Basically, they're looking at connections between notes and the distance between them. And then in addition to this, I think you mentioned melodic contour, just reading directionally. And one thing I always emphasize with my beginning students is that notes can move up, down, or stay the same. And developing this skill to read by contour is also what's going to develop fluency in reading. So I do want to make a disclaimer that we want them to know every note name individually, but that isn't the primary thing to train first.
I agree. Yeah. Yes. So important. The intervallic reading and being able to see patterns in music. I'm just thinking, when I pick up a piece, one of the first things I'll look at is the left hand. I'll look at the key, obviously. I'll look at the left hand and see if there's a pattern that I recognize. Is it a boogie? Is it a rock? Is it funk? Is it bossa nova? Is it, and all of those things, all of those patterns. I know we're not teaching them at this level, those kinds of patterns, but, it's so important to be able to see that, because suddenly you've got the style of the piece and you can make it feel like it should feel if you know that is, one of those particular patterns. So I think it's great that it's being brought in from as an early age as possible. One of the first things we tend to teach is reading seconds and thirds. How much practice do students need at reading pieces using melodic seconds and melodic thirds before they're ready to read pieces that have a combination of those two?
Yeah, so I do feel like students need quite an extended period of time reading each interval separately before combining them together, because they can understand that theoretical concept right away, but that doesn't mean they're going to be able to recognize the interval instantly. There's this translation process that has to happen, right? And so we want to kind of get rid of that process where they're looking at it, analyzing it, and processing it to the point where they can just see it and know what it is, and that their hand also knows what it is automatically. So to develop that takes so much time, usually for most students, to automatize that. So in Piano Safari, we do have one unit for each interval. So an entire unit only of seconds, and then an entire unit only of thirds, before we finally combine those two intervals together. So the reading moves at somewhat of a slower pace in our first level, because we really want to take time to build that foundation. for students before they move on in their reading skills. But since they're playing harder pieces by rote, it balances out because they're still developing as musicians and playing these great pieces they can play in a recital while they're taking time to really develop their reading skills.
Yeah, I think that's critical, particularly as students get older too, of course. When you say a unit, is that a book or a section of a book? How does that work?
Oh, good question. Yeah, it's a section of a book. So level 1 has 5 units. So it would be basically one of the book.
Right, yeah. So you would devote 1 to seconds, 1 to thirds, and then the next one might be mixing the two up kind of thing.
Yes, exactly.
Now, we talked about animal movements, and I think it would be good to go through those, but you also have animal rhythms, I think, to develop fluency in reading, and this comes back to patterns as well. So can you explain what these are and why they work?
Sure. So the animal rhythm patterns are basically commonly occurring rhythms, and we want students to learn to recognize them as a whole unit instead of reading and counting each rhythm like note by note. So it's a similar idea to what we just talked about, reading the melodic contour. One example of an animal rhythm is Zachariah Zebra. So that's 4 eighth notes and 2 quarter notes. And we want students to see that rhythm and understand it as a whole, how to execute it and just to recognize it as that. So that's just an example of one of our animal rhythms, but we do have about 6 others that are commonly occurring patterns. And they also tie to our techniques and some of the themes in our rote pieces. So they connect into the piano safari, but they can also be just used in general, really, with any piano method. But it's been very successful because I use that with piano safari friends in my group class, and even my 4 and 5-year-olds can recognize these rhythms, and they're so solid rhythmically. And they're not just counting them note by note. So they have a good rhythmic sense and feel when they're playing or counting.
I remember Zachariah Zebra, as we would say over here, zebra. What are a couple more that you chose? Because I mean, there are so many patterns out there that we would love our students to know, but they're not going to obviously be able to learn them all. How did you sort of decide? And what are a couple of other ones?
So another one is tall giraffe. So 2 quarters and a half note. That's a technique exercise also. We have just 4 quarter notes, Charlie, chipmunk. And we have some longer note values, hippo, and then roar, 2, 3, 4. So those combined together, I mean, you can build so many rhythm chains with those. They are primarily there for 4/4 time. So we don't have a whole group of triple meter animal rhythms, but we teach those to our preschoolers and beginners. And we also then transition to a syllabic counting system where they're using, ta, ta, ta-ti, ta-ti.
Oh, okay. Kadai sort of sounds, as far as I know. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we introduce that counting system, which enables students to count eighth notes early on.
And you also have lyrics with most of the music, I think, from memory. And I think lyrics can really help.
Yes.
Put make rhythms easier. And that's, I think, more of an ORF kind of technique. Is that a way that you encourage teachers to teach as well?
Yes, we do have lyrics to nearly all of our pieces. There are some rote pieces that do not have lyrics. And when they don't have lyrics, I actually encourage students and teachers to create their own, usually describing what the pattern is doing. So that can be a fun activity also.
What about storytelling? How can storytelling be used to help students visualize and remember the shapes and movements of melodies?
This is such a great idea. It's something we like to do, especially in our sight reading cards. I did pull out a sight reading card here to show you. So these are cards that correspond with our level 1. But we have this sample card, and this particular card only uses the interval of a second. But you can create these little contour stories. So, for example, they can be silly and simple. You walk up the hill, you eat your picnic lunch, and then you walk down the hill. I mean, anything to connect the student's mind to what that melody is shaped like, and then to have students come up with their own stories.
And so if you get, walking up and then it suddenly drops down an octave or something, walking up the hill, falling off the edge or, something, right?
Leaping off the cliff, parachuting off.
Diving into the swimming pool.
Really great thing to do that I've done with beginners using these cards is to stand on like a staircase. So, and then they move up and down on the stairs based on what the melody is doing. And then if they have the interval of a third, they skip a stair, so trying to do a large motor movement also.
The other thing that the research tells us about that approach, Katie, is that it's a novel activity. It's quite unusual and students wouldn't be expecting to go to a staircase to learn about seconds and thirds. And it's those kind of creative, novel experiences that really help students learn at a deeper level and really remember. They really remember those kinds of experiences. So I'm glad that that's an approach that you take and I hope other teachers out there do that. It's why games work so well for helping learn because they remember these experiences that we give them if they're a little bit novel, a little bit unusual. I think that's a classic one.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Why are you able to go through those other techniques? We talked about the first two. Could you show us the other ones?
All right. So again, we have the lion paw, which is the first technique, dropping with arm weight. And then the next one is the tall giraffe, which is working with non-legato articulation, so playing from the forearm. And then we use the wrist to emulate the neck of the giraffe. And then we have Zachariah Zebra. So this is building the piano hand shape and those end finger joints that we want students to keep strong. So they play the Zachariah Zebra rhythm using all 5 fingers. They rest in between to make sure their piano hand shape is still in good formation. And go through all 5 fingers. So those first 3 exercises in the book are all non-legato, and we do have students play all of their reading pieces and sight reading cards and rote pieces non-legato. Because that really establishes a good, healthy technique from the beginning. And so then after we've established that piano hand shape and playing non-legato, they do get to learn legato playing. So they have the tree frog technique. Tree frogs have sticky feet are the lyrics that go with that. But frogs, they also bounce, right? So what I was doing was using some arm to support each finger as I played, which is legato that's healthy. Your arm is helping your finger play. We don't just want students to play from here and not use any weight into the key. Then we have, we have kangaroo. Which is really similar to Zachariah Zebra. What I focus on this one is using momentum ending in the air to approach the next note. Then we have 2 more. So soaring bird, 3-note slur. Which is a more sophisticated form of legato than we had with the tree frog. Because you've got 3 individual finger motions under 1 wrist motion. And finally, we have monkey swinging in a tree, which is rotation of the forearm. So those are the techniques in level 1. And students learn those before they go into standard technical patterns like pentascales or 5-finger patterns, scales, chords. We want them to have this healthy foundation, be able to play with good arm weight and freedom and a good piano hand shape before they drill all of the actual patterns.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Katie. Why is the weight the arm weight important in that frog, the tree frog, I think it was the tree frog movement? Because I remember like old school technique was all like, no, keep your wrist still and move your fingers, right? So why have we moved away from that? Why do we now know that bringing the wrist and the arm in is important?
Mm-hmm. So I think, especially for small children, they have such small hands. If they really try to create any kind of big sound on the piano, they need more than just their finger to do it. So they need their arm to help them. But also for pianists of all levels, that's how we are going to play without injury, freely and effortlessly, and be able to create that tone and the beautiful sound we want to make.
So we wouldn't see someone in your lesson with a ruler, an eraser on the back of their hand, and that's not allowed to fall off.
Definitely not in one of my lessons.
And just we've talked about it before, I know, and it's a real big thing with Piano Safari, and I think you've really shifted the thinking around this, which is the non-legato approach for beginners. And I think we all see a lot of beginner students with their fingers really, flying all over the place, and they're finding it really hard to control. And I think this approach that you use, and you've preached about really, you guys, for quite some time, that we really should start students with a non-legato touch has started to sort of expand to most teachers. Why does that work so well?
Well, this was an idea that actually Julie did learn from many teachers in her dissertation research. She said all of them started their students non-legato, except for one Russian teacher who said, well, legato first, of course, except if they can't do it, then non-legato.
Right.
So, but what it's doing is it's connecting the finger as a unit with the arm. Yeah. And so that helps just, again, play with a healthy technique and play with freedom. If we sit around all day just wiggling our fingers from here, so much tension just builds underneath the forearm. And that's not really a motion that you can do for a long time. And it certainly won't promote virtuosic technique moving forward.
Even just holding my fingers up and moving them quickly is much harder than sort of flopping like moving the wrist it's a very natural, easy action.
Or like rotation, right? Yeah, that motion versus lifting the thumb and the fifth finger or something, trying to do that would never be as fluid or as fast as if you're using that larger gesture.
Thank you for sharing all of that. Now, onto the rote pieces. I did want to ask you about that because for teachers that are just starting rote teaching, this can be a real challenge, is about how to structure a lesson so that a student practices a rote piece enough times to remember it, but without feeling like a boring repetition. So what's your advice there?
So I do usually introduce just a section of a rote piece each week so that the student knows it thoroughly and can remember it. And another important thing is that the student has the sound in their ears. So we want them to listen to the audio tracks before they come into their lesson, ideally, because if they've heard the piece, that just eases the whole process. So it's kind of the preparation. One thing that's really helped me is, let's say I introduce the first 8 measures of a rote piece, or even shorter. Let's say the first 4 measures of a rote piece. After the student can play it well in the lesson, we'll go do something else like reading, and then come back and see if they can remember those 4 measures that they learned from their rote piece. So mixing it up throughout the lesson, moving away, coming back, that solidifies the memory, and it also keeps things from hopefully becoming too monotonous.
And do you ever sort of mix things up and ask a student to, why don't we play it up an octave or down an octave or backwards or upside down, or, mixing and change, or staccato when it's legato, things like that?
Yes, absolutely. Definitely the octave changes when students are young and they're just learning the keyboard orientation. That's a really helpful way to find, like, if it starts on C, for example, how many different Cs can you play this on? So you're accomplishing 2 goals at once, right? And changing the articulation if the student's at that level, and then altering the pattern also means the student understands the pattern to begin with. Maybe at a later stage, they could alter the pattern and kind of make it their own, which is a great way to bring in creativity to the lesson too, and just ideas for composition. Because I feel like a lot of compositions can grow out of something that we know, and that we get an idea from, a little gem of an idea, and then it grows into something new.
So my last sort of question, or as we kind of wrap things up, what about transposition? I think this is a really great skill for students to learn. How do you teach transposition skills so that a student can adapt a piece to different keys?
This is such an easy skill to teach if you're teaching by rote. So because students are looking directly at the keyboard, and it's easier for them to transfer a pattern they understand in a rote piece to another location on the piano. So we introduced that really early. I do have my book here. So Hungry Herbie Hippo, this is from level 1, and students learn this pattern on the black keys. And then on the second page, it tells students to play it in 4 other locations on the piano. And it's very simple at this point because we just have them mark the keys that they're skipping over. So I can show you really quickly. So the original piece is like this. And then we suggest coins in the book, but you do not have to use coins. I mean, honestly, they might fall between your piano keys. Maybe avoid that, but something just like page marking tabs or anything that you want to set on the key. There's little pictures and it shows where to put the tabs. And so they hop over those keys that are marked. And I didn't take the time to mark them, but you would have the student look at the picture and match the markers. And then they're playing in all these different keys. So that's a very simple way to introduce the concept of transposition without even explaining what the word means, maybe to a student. We're going to play this somewhere else on the piano. But later on in Piano Safari Level 2, students do learn all 24 keys of their 5-finger pentascales. And so at that point, when their pieces are more positional, I often pick a piece and have them play it in as many pentascale positions as they can. So I won't do that for every piece. We'll just pick one and it'll be like a special project. Have them keep a big list of all the keys they've played it in, major and minor. So one, Cabeza's diversions. Also, like at a higher level, this is what the book looks like. His pieces, as I mentioned earlier, are quite patterned. And he includes all these transposition suggestions for certain keys to transpose them to. So when students get to a more advanced level, they can become a little bit more formal about what transposition the word actually means, and then they're reading the music and transposing it, which is somewhat of a different skill than playing it by rote or by pattern and transposing.
Oh, that's great. Well, look, I know we're only kind of just really touching the surface of what Piano Safari is all about, but I do appreciate you giving us a quick overview. Now, one of the other things that's happened since we last spoke was you've got an institute and courses and things on your website. Could you tell us a little bit about your resources for teachers?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, I do want to mention that we have a new website that we just released in July.
It looks awesome, by the way. I hadn't seen it until I went to explore. This is like the biggest project I've done in a very long time. There was so much material to transfer to it. But as part of the website, we do have the Institute, and that has 4 pre-recorded courses. So it covers Piano Safari Friends and levels 1, 2, and 3 of our core method. And what we do in those is we do cover general, Julie teaches some too. We do cover some general pedagogical topics, but we really take a look at each piece and unit in the book and go through it in depth, just giving teaching suggestions and kind of really digging in. And it's on demand, so teachers can refer back to it at any stage, I assume. Is that right?
Yeah, the courses have lifetime access, which means as long as we have that course out there, a teacher can access it.
That's great. You must have quite the distribution warehouse now compared to when you first started and you were taking parcels. I remember you were talking about taking parcels to the post office and things. Am I right in thinking you actually built a space where you could store things?
Yes, I'm in the upstairs of my warehouse space. I have an office space, which is really nice. But we do have a warehouse here in Ohio, where that's our US based warehouse. And then internationally, we have one in England and then also in Australia. So we work with Devira.
Oh, Devira's helping over here now. Okay, that's great. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So they warehouse and ship everything for us in Australia.
Fantastic. That's great. And do you offer digital downloads of things at all?
We do offer digital downloads for our supplemental books. So anything that's kind of solo repertoire or like some of our supplemental cards and accessories that go with the method, we don't offer digital downloads of the method itself. Just we want to maintain the integrity of the book and not just have people copying kind of random pages of the core method. So that's our strategy for now. But we do have the core method on SuperScore if someone wants to use it, like on a device. So.
And what's next? What can you give us a little inside scoop as to what's going to be coming out soon?
So we have more resources coming from other composers that we're working with. A really fun kind of improvisation resource is coming, maybe another level of our composition series, more levels of our advancing pianist series. So we have some things going that need more books added to them. And this year, I think 2025 was the website year. So we'll see what happens, and we'll add some more books, I think, coming up in future years.
That sounds great. And Top Music Pro members, of course, you've got a discount in our library. Thank you very much for offering that to us and our members. They really appreciate it. And where do people go to find out more about your method?
Yeah, I think our website is probably the best place to go because we do have teacher guides that are free downloads. So if you visit the website and you go to the Institute section, it's more than just the courses. If you scroll down underneath the courses, you'll see all the book covers, and you can get free teacher guides and like free printables that go with the book. So also, if you just search us on YouTube, we do have some past webinars that we've done talking about the method and the philosophy. So you can still find those. And Teaching Piano Safari, our Facebook group, is a very active group. And
just to wrap things up, what would you say to teachers out there? They've been using other methods for some time. They understand how they work. They know what they're doing. What would you kind of say to them to encourage them to try out something different?
I just would encourage them to read a little bit more about our philosophy on our website and look at sample pages. There's just a lot there to kind of peruse and understand. Yeah, of course, I would encourage them just to take the leap and try something new.
Try it with one student and see how it goes.
Student. That's a great way to start. And I have had many teachers tell me that's how they did begin. I would say it's easier to start a student from the beginning than kind of jump in with a student who's already been in another piano method. So maybe with a new student.
Well, I'm very much aligned with the philosophy. I've always enjoyed what you've been creating and always happy to share it. So thank you very much for coming on the show today, Katie, and congratulations for all that you've created.
Yes, thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I hope, regardless of whether you use Piano Safari or don't, I hope you've enjoyed this revisitation of some of the approaches that are used in that method. I do believe quite strongly that it is a great, well-rounded, very much research-backed approach. And so if you are looking for a new method or you want to try something different, then definitely I do recommend checking it out. And if you're a Top Music Pro member, you can access our discount on all of the Piano Safari catalogue. Now, while today's episode's been all about beginner piano technique, I wanted to remind all of our listeners of an amazing course we have called Teaching Advancing Pianists by the fabulous Jana Williamson, which is available for one-off purchase over at topmusic.co/courses, and it's also inside our Top Music Pro membership. If you're starting to teach advanced students but are not confident in your ability, then this is the course for you. I commissioned Jana to create this course as I know that teaching more advanced techniques can be just as equally challenging as teaching the beginner technique that we've been discussing today for many teachers. And so I feel like, when teachers lack skills in this area, they tend to just hand over their advancing students. So you might have been teaching a child for 10 years. You've got them to this incredible level, and then you kind of lose all the goodwill and the skills and potential revenue as well by handing them over to another teacher. Now, of course, that's completely your prerogative if you'd prefer to do that. But I also want you to think, maybe with a little bit of upskilling, I could continue teaching them at least for a few more years. Imagine if you would have that confidence. What would that do to your studio and your ability to keep connecting with these kids and families that you've been involved with for often years and years at a time? In this course, Jana demonstrates how to teach specific pieces, including a Bach Prelude and Fugue and a Mozart Sonata, and the knowledge and skills developed for these pieces can then be transferred to other pieces in a similar style at this level. Jana also shares insightful tips on helping your advanced students explore and perform 19th and 20th century repertoire with all the background to some of the composers and some of the pieces that you should be well aware of. So you can find this over at topmusic.co/courses and download it, look at it, watch it, learn it, try and play it, experience it, and finally feel confident teaching students as they become more advanced. Don't necessarily think you're not good enough or that you have to hand them over. What if you could keep teaching them? Go and check it out, topmusic.co/courses. And if you're already a Top Music Pro member, you can find the Advancing Pianists course in our Top Music Pro library. Well, that's it for today. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed the show and looking forward to seeing you for the last 2 episodes of this year coming up. We have a fantastic episode next week. I can't wait to share this one with you. It's all about makeup lessons. And the title of this one is Why Giving Makeup Lessons is a Bad Idea, with my guest, Jonathan Roberts, who has one of the best YouTube videos I've ever seen on this topic. We're going to unpack all about makeup lessons. Whatever your theory is or feeling about it or policy is, definitely tune in next week for that incredible interview. It's really, really great. It's going to make you think, I guarantee it. And then finally, we're going to wrap things up with our final episode of the year in the week of the 15th of December. I look forward to speaking to you all then. Until next week, enjoy your teaching, and I'll speak to you soon. How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today. If you enjoy this show and want to hear more of our work, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, visit us at topmusic.co/podcast or check out the show notes. I'm Tim Topham. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your week ahead, and I'll catch you next time.